All right, folks, my name's Colton Woods, and we're here with a 3.5-year-old Gypsy Vanner by the name of Kit, and she's here with us over the next several weeks to get started. So today is the first day that we've worked with her. She just got dropped off over the weekend, and you can already tell she's a little pushy, and she's essentially a pet. And so that's just kind of how she's been raised. She's real in your pocket. I was cleaning out the round pen a few minutes ago, and she's just kind of following me around. So we're going to take you guys through the first week, and we're going to film each session. It's going to be pretty raw. You're going to get to see all the ins and outs of what we do for the first week. And right now we're going to get started. As you can tell, I'm mic'd up, and I'm just going to talk you guys through what we're doing. So the very first thing I'm going to do with Kit is I'm going to ask her to go out on the edge of the round pen here. And what I'm going to be looking for is I'm going to pick the direction. So I asked her to go to the left, and we're not going to make a big deal. I asked her to go off to the left, but this little horse, she's been worked with a little bit, but what I've found with horses that have been messed with, they have a bit of a pet mentality, is that sometimes they have a tendency to shut down when you apply a lot of pressure because they haven't ever been pushed too much. So with this little horse right now, we've got her going to the right, and I'm just going to ask her to go around. I don't care if she walk, trots, or canters right now. I'm just saying, hey, you need to go to the right. So the main thing is I don't want her to double back or turn into the fence, and I just want her momentum to keep going this way. And I'm going to evaluate, hey, is she relaxed? Is she a little tight? Where is she at with everything? And so here I'll step out in front of her and see if I can get her to just kind of look at me. And she could be pretty apt to draw in because she knows she's really comfortable with people. And so there she did pretty good. And if she were to leave, I'm not going to beg her to stay, but I'm not going to run her off either. So if she just wants to go, I'll make her go. Now, we'll go ahead and address the white elephant in the room with this little horse. She's clearly pretty fat. So I've got to, starting colts, I have to take that into consideration. I've got to take into their physical well-being or just where they're at. This horse has some extra weight and a fair bit of it. So I've taken that into consideration, and here's in terms of what I'm going to do with her. So I need to be able to push around because I need to say, hey, where are you at mentally? If I push on you, so if we ask her to canter, she just kind of grunted there a little bit, but I want to see, is she going to wring her head, swish her tail? Is she going to kick out, or is she going to go about it willingly? And when we ask her to. So right now I'm just kind of taking mental note on, hey, did she get really sour when I ask her to move her feet and do more? Or does she do it and she's pretty happy to go about doing it? And you know, right now she's kind of in between. She let that little grunt thing out. I don't know if you guys could have heard it or not, but I don't, you know, it was probably a little bit of, hey, I'd rather not have to canter. I'm kind of out of shape here. But she didn't also, like, she didn't kick out behind or buck or anything like that. So one of the things I want to do with this whole series of showing you guys this first week is we're going to do this with multiple horses. So there I say, hey, go to the right. Now let's see, so she tried to change eyes. So I'm going to stay, yeah. So she didn't really like me pushing on her there, and she kind of squealed when I made her go back to the right. So we're going to work on that. We're going to work on pushing her around a little bit, and that's going to bring out some emotion. She just got here on Saturday, and my wife Meredith went to pick her up to get her out of the stall to turn her out. So I'll point to her here saying, hey, I need you to go to the right. That would be my indication, like I'm sending her, saying, hey, go. I want her to canter, so I'm going to put a verbal cue to it. That might help her and her owner out later on. So I'll kiss to her. She doesn't go, then I come in with the flag, and there she goes. But I'm going to put this series in so that the horse can get confident in a series of events that happens, so that eventually she'll go on and carry on when I just point out in front of me. So it'd be the same if I have a halter on her and we're doing our groundwork. I'm just trying to get her to yield her hindquarters and start stepping towards me. She's kind of starting to meander some circles. So I'm just trying to change my body position to get those hindquarters to roll over so that she'll end up straight like she did. So it's pretty apparent. Now she's putting me in this left eye. And that's what she tried to do a few minutes ago. When I sent her out to the right, she headed off towards the fence and then tried to come to the left to get me in that left eye. So she's probably just a bit more confident, which is pretty normal. Horses tend to be a bit pushier on the left side because people just simply spend more time on the left side. But with her, I want to go ahead and I'm going to ask her to go back to the right. So I'm going to step here. I'm going to say, I'm going to raise this flag. And you can use a flag, a stick, a lunge whip. I just picked the flag because I thought that that would be the most effective thing to get her to move her feet. You know, some horses are really desensitized to these horsemanship flags. Some horses. So here I'm gonna step towards her eye and see how she got faster. I just asked her, I pushed on her eye because she's cutting my circle short. So I stepped towards her eye to push her out towards the fence, and I'm looking at her eye. My energy and the flag is pointed up there towards her shoulder to push her back out. And when I did that the first time, she got faster, and she actually took like a little initiation step to the lope. So I'll step towards her here, and I'm paying attention. If your horse gets faster, you can imagine if you got on them and you said, hey, yield your shoulders over. This horse, she doesn't know because she hasn't been started yet, but she'd just get faster and take off. We don't want our horses to use speed against us. We want them to respond to what we want. So then I just take that as, hey, you didn't quite know what I wanted from you. You got faster, but then we just practice it over and over. So if I step here towards her, she should there yield back towards the fence. And when she gets out there, I get quiet. Here she comes towards me, but see, she sped up, but then she ended up back where I want her to, so I get quiet and I just let her continue on. So we'll step back in front of the balance point here, start to draw on her. Clearly she's more interested in itching. So there she's looking, trying to draw on this inside eye and get that hind quarter. This horse, so you'll see though, she hasn't been made to pay, like her focus and attention, it's gonna take time for her. So there she just went to leave. So I'm just gonna make her go. I'm not gonna beg her. I try to set them up, so I kept trying to draw on her eye, help her hindquarters. So when she goes, now we're just gonna say, hey, if you can't stick around to pay attention, you gotta move your feet. And she's like, well, that's not too much fun. So we'll just work on creating this draw. There she goes. I'm just paying attention there. She tipped her head back towards you guys, and she keeps putting me in this left eye. I don't stress about that too much, but it's just something I take note of as we're starting them, so we can say, hey, they're a little more confident on this other side. So there I can just use my flag to block her because I needed to get to this right side. I tried to get my hand across her nose there without startling her. She's pretty bullish. She's really comfortable with people. She's not gonna get too offended and run off by any means. So I wasn't too worried about reaching up here and pulling on her head, because some horses they get too worried. They have that sensation, but she's been handled so much by people that she can be kind of bullheaded, and she's just pushy, but she'll figure it out pretty soon. And so that I just can use this flag just like an extension of my arm, and I just use it to get to the other side, and then I can rub her with it and her get used to this. And so I can reach on the other side here, the side that she's a little cognizant and not too sure about. And when she moved her feet a little bit, that's fine, but then I just started rubbing her with this flag so that it should be something that she's not so worried about. So I'll step here and see if she'll follow me. Just put a little motion there, those hindquarters come, and she gets faced back up. That's really good. So even when they're loose, or at liberty, if you will, if you want to go that far, we're looking for hindquarters and front and shoulder control, and overall relaxation is the first thing. So this little horse is pretty darn relaxed, but here I can step towards her hindquarters and try to get her eye. Just wiggle the flag down here by her feet and step towards her hindquarters a little bit. And now we're starting to get, this is where you can really evaluate some focus on some horses. There she went to turn away. I was walking up towards her to rub her on the forehead and say, hey, good job, and she turned away. So I stopped, because if I kept walking forward when she turned away, when she came back, if I would have kept walking, I would have been a lot closer to her than I was when she looked away from me, and that could sometimes startle the green colts. So try to get her attention back so that when I go up to rub her, she doesn't get all worried, because she's not one, but that's just a general tip with some green colts that they can get that way. So I'll step towards this other side, which is her more confident side. There you go. So I'm cognizant that her shoulders came a little close to me that time, a little closer than I'd really like them to, but I'm not going to get all too... The thing with the green colts is that you want to make progress, but like I said earlier on, you don't want to overface them. You got to have some clear guidelines. But this right now, you know, initially she's not hardly paying attention, and so we want to get them comfortable and confident, and I want to feel like that I can start pushing around, so I could take this flag on this side. There. And so there she responded. I just said, hey, get your shoulders back a little bit and don't step on top of me. And she didn't freak out. You know, they could just leave. That was a prime opportunity. I don't have her on a halter and lead right now. So I'd point to her there. Hey. So I just waved my flag up near her head, just kind of blocking that eye. So I'm looking for her to step out towards the side of the round pen. There. Good girl. And I like to rub them. I had to kind of tap her, and I tapped her right in the belly, right where my foot's going to be eventually when I have the saddle on her and I go to ride her. So I try to start implementing those sensations or those cues that'll come in early on. And so, like I said earlier, she's a little overweight, so she doesn't need to do a terrible lot of running around. It's kind of a little bit like fat camp. You're not going to come to fat camp and have to run a marathon the first day, and I don't want to make her think that she can't do it. But here I'll draw on her and see if I can get her straightened out. And now we've got her a little bit, she's not drawing straight, but see, I want to see if that front left can step towards me more. And then I can step over here towards this right side and do a change of direction. You can tell here, like, she's so casual. You know, she probably wouldn't do too well in the wild, because she's like, oh, a fly's on me, I need to itch that, I'll get back to you in a second. We're gonna fix all that over a period of days here. So I'm just looking for a change to the canter, and when she canters, I back off. She doesn't have, it's more about the transition upwards than it is about them carrying the canter. Because if you can get transitions really good, whether it's a green colt or whether it's a horse that's high level, if you can get transitions cleaned up, then the actual gait itself will be super easy, or a lot better, let's put it that way. So here I'm going to ask the shoulders. So then I'm just going to block that eye, because I need her to yield. This is all about principles of yielding. There. So that was really good. She backed up. I wasn't so worried that she kept backing away. I just stayed with her, not applying more pressure, but just staying steady so that she could shift those shoulders back out to the edge. There she wants to look like she wants to come in. This horse knows when she's with people, it's real easy. So she's like, man, I don't want to have to be on the outside of that round pen. And eventually we'll get to the point where I'm not on the outside. She's getting to where she, there we go, just up towards her eye to block that eye from turning back this way. Try not to have to smack on them, because they can, particularly these ones that have been pampered, they can get real offended, and some of them might even go to a phase where you start to see them kind of go inside of themselves, or some people call it getting shut down. And so you do everything you can not to have to smack on them, because right now for her, she's in a new place, she's with new people, doing new things, and we want her to enjoy it. But we got to work from this whole natural horsemanship thing is just trying to work in a way that they understand what we're after. So, you know, that's pretty good. it's not perfect. And what you'll notice is that as we start putting out more and more content for you guys, I'm going to go ahead and grab a halter for, is that sometimes this colt starting stuff, these horses are here for a period of time of at least 90 days, and a lot of them stay 6 months or a year or so. And so these horses have time. It's not about getting it perfect the very first day. It shouldn't be, even if you only had them for a week, but we can get them a little bit better about everything over a period of days, and it keeps them interested. It doesn't overwhelm them. And I've made the mistake of, you know, you don't feel like, you don't essentially drill on certain things, but you can get caught up on one and get something perfect like their hindquarters moving over. But if we get just a little bit better every day, you know, that's 5-6 days a week on it getting a little bit better, and you look back on Saturday or Friday back to Monday when you started, it's a lot better than it was. So I'm not going to get too caught up on everything having to be super perfect today's day one, but I'm certainly, so there she just stepped towards me and I just bumped her. So I'm just kind of using this rope here, checking her out, making sure she's not going to get too worried. Now, I'm not going to let her run me over. This horse, if like you've got a pretty good angle by this point, she's thick, and she's pretty much like a bull in a china shop, and she doesn't have too much regard for people when it comes to giving a crap, really, to be honest. The thing I always tell people that have pushy horses is, one, don't take it personally, but two, you don't see your horses running into trees out in the paddock. And so your horse pretty much respects you more than they respect a tree. And that's usually pretty humbling. And I don't think I'll have to say much more about that. But that's, you know, with these horses here, she's gonna have to learn that she can't run me over. So I just slightly pick up, and when she doesn't move her feet, I'm not gonna pull her chin back to her chest. I'm just gonna ask her to go back, and when she doesn't, I'm going side to side. And when her feet come loose, I back off. And so the first time I did that, she licked and chewed. And it's just about the feet. And so it's a series of her yielding. And right now when she doesn't yield, a lot of times she comes towards you, and that's not going to work out, because then we'll end up getting run over. So that's not really what we're after. And so I just like to check this out, because if I'm going to throw a saddle on her, she needs to be okay with this. So she went to moving her feet. I'm just going to stay with her. You'll notice I'll have my left hand here, I'll raise it. If she goes to run into me, then I can raise it towards her eye and block her a little bit. But this right here, there she started to step towards me, so I just bopped her in the jaw, because it's here. I waved my hand towards her. I'm like, hey, you need to be aware that, you know, if you need to move around, I'm not too worried. Like, you can move around, and you can't pull on me. Don't pull. But you can move around and stay soft on this halter. And I promise you that this little rope here, you know, we have to be understanding that this is not something they may be used to. But I'm just building baby steps in to getting them saddled. And so I want them to get used to this feeling. I want her to feel like she can do this and not have to move her feet. She's just a bit of a plow horse. So, you know, I give them the chance to run into that contact and come off of it. But if they get to rooting on you real bad, then, you know, I'll bump them off of it, because you don't want to teach them to lean into contact and just pull. Her feet paused there just for a second, and so I stopped flopping that rope across her back. That's what I was looking for, because initially she was standing still, and then I went to move that rope around and she felt like she had to move her feet. And I let her move her feet. I wasn't going to stop her from moving her feet. I just had some rules and regulations that, hey, you know, you can't run me over and you can't drag me around here. And this rope's going to keep moving around your back until you find a place to get stopped. And that just you know, their brains get to moving and moving, and you might have a horse that gets real worried, and the faster they go, it's just the faster their mind goes, the faster their feet goes. So we're going ahead and kind of teaching this little horse, hey, you know, I want you to feel like you can hang out. And so, you notice I just kind of bopped her there when she started to step towards me, because she's gonna step on top of me. And it's nothing personal by any means. It's just simply, she wouldn't do that to a horse that she respected out in the field, because that other horse that she respected, if they really had a strong pecking order, it might pin its ears, or, you know, switch its tail, or cock its leg, or actually turn around and bite her or kick at her, because they're like, hey, this is my space, like, you got to sort your own thing out. You know, I'm here to support her, but at the same time, when she gets worried, I want to be understanding and let her know that, hey, I understand you're getting a little worried, and we can back that pressure off a little bit. So there you can tell she started to move her feet to block me a little bit from getting on this side. And when I pet these horses, particularly these green colts, it's pretty firm. It's not a pat. I don't pat these horses because it's a stimulus. So here when I go to throw this lead rope for the first time, I want to make sure that she can see it coming. Just before that second, she was looking the other way. I was ready to do it, but then she kind of zoned out a little bit. So I've got my right hand here. You'll see I'm not going to go ahead and stop her from making the mistake. That's the big mistake that people make with green horses, is that they micromanage them, or any horse in general, they micromanage these guys. And so she's shifting her feet around a little bit. There she goes. She just stands still, and I want her to be able to stand here. This will be her favorite gait, is just whoa. And then once you have these horses super relaxed when they can stand still and they get this desensitizing stuff going on, and you're not worried about them, because I've got to be able to get a saddle on her, right? So I'm just throwing a lead rope over her back. How am I going to keep her still, or how is she going to know to stand still when I go to saddle her if she can't even stand still when I'm throwing this little lead rope over her back? So I'm just building little pieces. I'm getting her used to this sensation of something going under her back, maybe something coming under her belly, and her needing to stand still while this happens, because I really don't want her to be shifting around too much when I go to saddle her, if at all, because that would just get in the way. She might get worried, dump the saddle, and then she gets scared, and then we've got a whole nother deal to fix. Whereas if we can prepare these horses just doing little basic stuff right along. So here, what I'll do is I'm going to ask her to go around. So I've stuck my left arm out just to ask her to go forward, and I clucked to her, and then I spun the rope in behind us to back it up. And if I had to make contact, I would. So we'll clean all this groundwork up as we go, guys. This isn't necessarily going to be how to get your groundwork good. We're going to have videos out. So there, she just got her shoulders stuck, so I focused on her shoulders to push her shoulders out. She moved her shoulders out, and then she pulled on me, so I just let her run into the contact, and she'll figure out how to stay soft within it. But pretty much what I want to be able to do is I want her to be able to move out here around me, not be trying to run me over. So I'm just, notice that when she needs to keep going, I'm going to go to that spot where my leg's going to be. I can go ahead, and if I need to go back to my lead rope, because we got to get the hindquarters, and she's just, like I said, she's a bull in a china shop. She just wants to really lean into you, and so we got to get some connection there. She goes to that inside hind. Say, hey, can you go back out? That was pretty good. So she's going to learn to follow this feel out to the side. But see, you notice when her head goes to the outside, her inside hind pushes to the outside. So her butt comes towards me because she tries to go towards the fence. I don't want to have to smack her more than I have to, but if it gets there she goes. But I'm going to make contact if I need to. I'm not going to sit here and beg them to death. And she has to know that I'm going to back it up. And they know really soon. They start to learn that. And if you have those discussions early on, then they can roll with it. But if it's this gray area where they're like, sometimes they smack me, but when they stick their hand out and then they cluck to me, and sometimes they hit me if I don't do it, and sometimes they just let me do what I want. I don't want that gray area because then the horse isn't able to get confident there. So that was a good shoulder yield to start with. And we'll see how she is on this right side. Sometimes horses that don't know as much on the right side, sometimes they come around a little faster and sometimes they don't. But it's always interesting to me to switch sides on these horses. Those shoulders stopped. You notice that the hind end kept coming around, but the shoulders stopped, which made the hind end pivot. And so I'm just basically saying, hey, I picked up on her with the inside hind, and time with that, ask her to go back around. I'm gonna bump her off of that because when I sent her around, she just almost like she was gonna beeline it for the fence. She's got to figure out the distance in this lead rope. She might have been allowed just to pull on the end of a lead, and she doesn't look back to you. You'll start to notice though when she starts to figure out how much slack is in this lead and where she can operate with in between it, her shape and her body, she won't be pushing on the inside of the circle because her body, her inside hind will track up underneath. But I don't want to have to be jerking on her. I just want her to travel around and then let her get soft for a little bit. And I go, hey, hindquarters, there you go. But I'm not going to let her just lean on to that, because she's already, you can tell, like, even horses that have never been halter broke, they search for that place and they try to find a way to get out of pressure, and sometimes they feel like they have to run through it. Sometimes they pull on you, and other times they try to back out of it. And so they'll try all sorts of things. She, knowing how much she's been handled, she's just kind of pulling on you. So I'm gonna say, hey, can you go out to my left? There she go. That was nice. I like for my horses to travel around and go out onto the circle with a shoulder yield first. When I pick up on her face, if I have to bump her, I'm trying to do it in time with the inside hind so that when I pick up on this, it's connected to a foot and that it helps her get shaped up a little bit better versus just kind of pulling on her. All right, so here guys, we lost our audio on our mic, so I'm gonna hang out with you and I'm gonna talk you through kind of what's going on. What you'll notice is that when I go to pick up on the lead rope, what you guys might be focused on is the horse's head. I want you to be focused on her inside hind foot, because as she comes around this turn, particularly towards the gate, she shapes up like right about here. Now, what ends up happening is that because the halter rope is physically connected to her head, we see a lot of reaction. Her head comes up. But what we're really looking for is for that hind foot to step up underneath her like she did there. And there I tapped her, just trying to drive that inside hind, because what she tends to do is that when you go to tap her, she buries her head forward and she just takes off. So she's known to drag you around a little bit. There I'm really looking at that inside hind. There she starts to make it, but you notice that she starts to. So I'm going to step to the side, asking that inside hind to track up. And it's all about the feet. So I just do the beginnings of teaching her how to back up on the end of the lead rope there. But I want to see, a lot of times we see pretty much the symptom of the matter, which is the head goes up, the back hollows out. But what we're focused on is getting to those feet. That back up there was pretty good. She's real bracy, she's real pushy. So, it's not so much about, it's a little bit about what you can see here, but it's also about what it feels like. Does she back up softly? And if she were to hit the end of that halter rope, when I go to back her up, I wouldn't try to push her chin to her chest. What I'd actually do is go left to right with that halter rope, with the halter there, to get in time with those front left and right feet, because our horses back up in a trot. So if I ask that front right to go back, then the back left will go back as well. So now we've kind of moved on to getting those hindquarters. We like to keep it moving a little bit with these young horses. We want to give them time to settle and relax, but we also want to be checking them out. That's a lot better right there. You can see that she stayed planted on those front feet, and she pretty much pivoted on the forehand. That's pretty good. But here you can see I went to set her back,
because we want to unlock those feet. We want her to start to separate all this and pretty much get it to where she's supple. Right now, if you can imagine, she's about as stiff as a telephone pole. So we're trying to put some bend in there, and that's why you see that when you go to pick up with that lead rope and she goes around those small circles, and you go to pick up in time with that front left foot, or the inside hind, excuse me, that nothing changes from the shoulder back, or nothing changes. Her head swings to the inside or elevates, but nothing really changes with those feet, and that's the change we're looking for. So here I've swung the lead rope around, kind of flopped around her back. She's really desensitized, and almost to an extent that I'd say is too much. But there I just taken that lead rope, put it around her girth area, and you can see it's there. And I'm asking her to kind of track around me a little bit, and I'm just have that tight like the cinch would be. There's quite a few steps that we can take these horses through when preparing them for a saddle. And, you know, guys, like, this isn't a how to do a colt start. This is me starting a colt based on where this horse is at. And so, you know, there's certain things like we could take the lariat rope and create like a belly rope and start at the cinch and work our ways back to the flank and everything. But for this particular horse, you know, she's not really worried about too much, and we can always go back if we need to. But for this situation, she's pretty good. And so I'm just doing this as a little bit of, maybe there's something I missed, and that's why I'm going to this extent. If this showed up and she were to crack in half here, I'd certainly go and get my lariat rope and put it around, but you can tell she's not too worried about it at all. So we're going to keep moving ahead here, and I'm pretty sure I just go and grab my saddle so we can get on to this first saddling. So here I've got it's a 15.5-inch seat. That's from Frecker Saddlery. They're out of Idaho. I think they're based out of California now, and it's a ranch rope and saddle. It's a really wide tree. It fits a very diverse group. And so there, I'll just go ahead and address that as I went to back her up, you could see she kind of leaned into me a bit. And even here, I went to move those shoulders away. You can see how her head moves. But I'm not chasing her. I'm just putting motion and energy in my steps. My intention is I just need to get to the other side of you. She does not prepare for anything. The only thing that horse was preparing for was food. And so with her, we've got to get her to where she gets ready and she prepares for what's got to happen, because at some point she's going to have a job to be done. But to this point in her life, she hasn't had to prepare for anything. And so there I went to ask her to back up so I could go get my pad, and she really braced into me. So I went ahead and asked her to back up, and then her shoulders were kind of my way. I went to ask her shoulders to move out of the way, and she'd move her head, but she wouldn't follow with her feet. And that's what it's about. Everything is about the horse's feet. When the feet get right and we keep our horses in a relaxed and confident manner, then the rest will shape up. And that, what I mean by the rest shapes up, is that usually their head drops down. Their head becomes in that position that we'd like them to be riding in. But early on, we don't get too concerned about that. We're just focused on keeping our horses confident, relaxed, and letting them understand how it's all correlated to moving their feet. So we've got the pad on her, and we're getting ready to tack her up for the first time. And I remember when I didn't know that the mic had gone out on us, so I was still talking throughout this whole time. But here I tack her up on the offside, on her right side. And I do that for a very specific purpose, and that is because when you're tacking up a horse for the first time, we want to minimize any risks that we might have. We try to prepare them the best we can. But when I tack her up on the right side, that allows me to drop my cinches on that side, my front and my back cinch, and to make sure they're hanging at a reasonable distance. That way they're going to fit this particular horse. And then when I have to go to the left side of her to actually tighten the girth up, I don't have to switch back and forth. If I would have tacked her up like we traditionally would, I would have tacked her up on the left, had to have gone to the right to drop my cinches, and then back to the left to then hook the cinches or to cinch her up. When we do it this way, you only have to change directions once, and there's always that little spot there where you have to go right in front of them. And if something spooked them directly behind while you're right in front of them, they're liable to run you down or run you over. And so we want to be very cognizant. And here, we don't have it quite zoomed in, but here I'm very careful and just in terms of being considerate to the horse as to how I cinch them up. My hand is still holding that girth up against her belly until I get the latigo run through there twice so that I can cinch her up. I wouldn't just run one lap of the latigo and let that girth hang loose, because if she were to shift in my saddle, get up underneath her, then she'd either break the tree in my saddle and all that stuff, but then also the horse would have a really bad experience. So we don't try to tiptoe around them on the first saddling, but we certainly try to be considerate that they're green, we're strapping a saddle to them for the first time, and we want to make sure that we're doing the best we can to help keep them focused, because this is a new feeling to them. This is something that's strapped to their back, so they're going to have to actually physically get used to the feel of this while also being able to think through it and being allowed to, if they feel like they have to buck or huck around, we do our best not to help prepare them not to have to go to that place. But if they need to do it, we need to let them work through it and not get in the way and make them scared of making a mistake and like that. If a horse feels like they need to do it, we need to be there to support them and say, hey, you're going to be fine. It's not, you can't do that, because if the horse starts to feel like they can't save themselves, then we're going to have a whole lot of troubles with confidence down the road. So there I'm just doing a once over, and we're going to turn her loose here, I'm pretty sure. And when we do, actually no, what I was doing there is I was tightening that halter up. That halter had slipped down on her face, and so we tighten that halter up, and now I'm going to leave the halter on her, and I just loop it around my horn there, because I know that I'm going to send her around here, and then I'm going to want to catch her back up for a second to check my girth to make sure it's still tight. You might have to go up an extra hole once she moves out, but there we go. Let her move off, and I'm very cognizant. See how she's so comfortable with people? Well, I throw my hands at her there, and I try to get out of the way a little bit, because she so wants to be right up next to you that at any second she could go, oh crap, that saddle's on me. And then her whole mode changes. There you could tell she was just like really coming up to me with a good walk. And not that we want to scare them off. I don't want to feel like we're punishing them for coming up to us, but I want her to have plenty of room to experience the sensation of packing that saddle around. And she does get a little worried here in a second. And obviously I didn't have like a crystal globe in front of her. It's a little different now doing the voiceover for you guys. But this is all really good right now, because she's staying focused. She's at liberty essentially, and she's getting her hindquarter yields. She comes back, she draws. She didn't just go out there and get so worried that she quits thinking about people. And so you try to toe that line with these green horses and try to help them work through this entire situation in terms of staying connected with you, getting confident, not getting too worried, but then also being there to support them. So what we're going to do is I'm just checking these cinches a little bit, just making sure we're all good, and then we're going to send her back out around. And even there, like she went to move, you don't make a big deal out of it, because if it happens, it happens, but you certainly don't want to get worried, because these green horses, they feed off of your energy, so you want to be confident and comfortable with what's going on as well. So, all right. And just adjusting our halter there, and I'm going to pick her flag back up. See there, I keep my eye on her, and she still walks towards me. I would never just turn my back to her and bend over, because at any point they might come. If you start enough colts, they'll go through a point where they and here she kind of hucks around just a little bit, and that was because initially she hadn't trotted, and when I asked her to, I just asked her to move out. She went to trot, and then she's like, oh, geez, this feels different. And then she hit the canter, and then she kind of went into her little bunny hopping deal. And that's about all it lasts. I'm pretty sure she does it just the other way a little bit. But you can see how she's like, I just want to come back into you. I'm like, hey, I want you to go out there, and I want you to move around, and I want you to relax while you're moving. And because what ends up happening is speed is emotion. And so there she went around for almost a lap, and she had started, her tempo, her rhythm, and her gait had started to get better. Her trot was better. It wasn't getting really, really choppy, and she wasn't obviously bucking. So that's what we're looking for, because that is directly correlated to her emotional state. And so here we want her to go the other way. Now, she's a little more confident on this side in terms of being used to having people on this side. She wasn't as she went around to the right first, and that was just kind of the direction that got picked. But we know to the left she's more confident, and you can see here she's got a nice little jog, I'll call it. But we also want her to hit all three gaits. And so we want her to walk, trot, and canter so that she can feel this saddle on a full range of motion. And she gets hung up at the gate a bit. We end up having some lessons on that. And here I'm really getting busy with the flag. She's so desensitized. There she just kind of got a little tight. So we just want to keep her moving forward. I want to get her back into the canter here. And she's more apt to canter towards the gate like she did there. She picked up that. And over the next couple sessions, you guys will notice how we work on that. Now here I went to get a lunge whip because she was only cantering back towards the gate, and I wanted to be able to give her the same cues of pointing out, clocking, or kissing to her for the canter, and then tapping her on the bum when she needed to. And I like the flag preferably just because it gives me, I can be as subtle with it as I have to be or as I would like to be, and then I can also make myself really, really big. The lunge whip isn't. The lunge whip is very skinny. It's not as visible. It gives me the ability to reach out and touch them if I need to, just like if I was riding with a crop. That's how I think of this whole situation. And there's a moment up here I know where she turns back, and you'll see why it makes it a little bit difficult with a lunge whip, because it's not nearly as visible. But here anyway, she's done really good. We got some canter work out of her. She stayed relaxed, and you can tell that both ways she initially had a little bit of trouble and stickiness, but not enough. She was able to work through it. She's at liberty. She can sort through it, and we're there to keep her comfortable. And then once she works out of it, we say, okay, that's no problem. We just need to go back and we need to go through that experience again. So here she goes off to leave. And I say, if you want to leave, that's fine. And when she got to the edge of the round pin is when I would put the pressure on. I didn't chase her off. I wouldn't, when she goes to leave, I wouldn't want to get after her when she's in the middle of leaving, because then they end up leaving harder per se. And when they do go to leave, if you get after them when they leave initially, then when they make that mental decision that they're going to go, then you'll start to see they did like take off. So we don't want to do that. We want to let her leave, and then when she gets to where she's going, which was the outside of the round pin, then we apply the pressure. And I'm only putting the pressure on. She might only go a quarter of the round pin, and then I take the pressure off, and I try to give her the chance to come back in. And you can see here that she drifts out towards the shoulders, back towards the gate. Just about every time when she's come through that track and I've drawn on her, she has to make the decision of whether to come with me or to go to the gate. And right now she's picking the gate. So we say, that's fine. You can go back to the edge of the round pin, but I'm trying to draw on her after she's got past the door of the pin, and then there she leaves again. So when she's leaving, when she's headed to that destination, I apply that pressure on her because she's made the decision that it'd be easier to go out that gate than with me. And so I'm like, that's fine. We don't have to make it impossible. We got to remember that this horse is just coming into work. She's got a little extra weight, and we're doing a lot of new stuff with her. So we want to be effective and efficient in how we're using our time and energy to help this horse. but we've also got to get the job done. So here she's doing pretty good. You'll notice that she'll keep me in her left eye a lot. She won't want to put me in her eye either. She licks and chews as she's walking up. And well, over the course of time, you can tell that she does a lot of, when she hooks on or she starts to come towards you, she stays in a circle, and we'll work on trying to get that to where she draws and she comes straight to us. And that's going to be a lot of shoulder control. But here because it took us a little bit to get this to happen, we want to give her a few minutes just to, or at least, a minute or so to catch her breath. And so there, I was going to go to the other side of her to rub her on the right side. And as I started to initiate that step, she blocked me. And she would rather me not be on that right side. So this will be something that we work on over the next couple of days, and you guys will be able to see how all this comes together. And this was our first full-length video for a Colt start, and so we're right here, guys. You'll see I try to stay wide, and I just use my arm, and I just kind of shifted so I can make sure I get on this right side. I even might have used that lunge whip just to get on the other side, but see here, she's like, I'd rather you not be on that side. And so she leaves. And so we want to build some confidence with her and want her to realize that, hey, life's not much different on this side, and when you want to hang out with us, then it can be calm and cool, but when you want to leave and go do your own thing, then there's work to be done. But with this being our first video, we had a little bit of technical difficulties with the microphone, and it's a brand new setup to us, but you notice that in the rest of the videos, we didn't have this issue. So you just have to bear with us for the video number 1. But we keep the rules the same, guys. On this side, she wanted to go out to the right, and when we asked her for that, just to go on the other side of her, and she wanted to go out to the right of the round pen, so we say, hey, that's fine. You have to canter past the gate, and when you get past the gate, you got to keep, we're just going for the canter here, and so we're like, hey, canter 1 full lap, but you cannot stop going to the gate, and when you get past the gate, there you go, we take the pressure off on the opposite side of the pin from the gate. Now here, I'd really like for her to stop so that I can get on this right side. And we'll see. There she has to make a decision. Does she come to me or does she go back towards the gate? She's drifting out to the outside. I'm trying to help her. You help them as much as you can, but then when they go to make that decision where her shoulder started to go towards the outside of the pin a fair bit, then we drive her on and say, hey, fine, if you're going to make the decision to go without me, I'm not going to beg you to stay, but I'm certainly going to give you the choice. There she kind of just decided just to squeeze between me and the fence. And you'll notice that I use a lunge whip just as an aid in case. If I get close enough to where I can reach them there, that's pretty good. So here she goes like, oh, that was my chance. She had the angle on me a little bit so she could change directions. I don't make a huge deal about it. At some point, we're going to be working on those changes of direction, but I just say, hey, I don't want to make a big deal about it because it would make a big deal to her. Now there, I'm going to make a bit of a fuss because she turned her butt towards me. Now, I'm trying to just put energy out in front of her. I don't want to go to wailing on her. So I'm just trying to put energy out in front, and you guys are going to get a good laugh because this is why I like a flag. So there you saw that. I threw my hands up in the air to get her stopped because she just runs straight through pressure. I was tapping the fence out in front of her that whole time, and she just would run right through it. So finally, I had to go and change my angle a little bit and get in front of her and throw my hands up for her to make that decision. And the only reason I made a fuss about that was because she turned into the fence away from me and turned her butt towards me. And this horse doesn't have much regard for the respect of a human. So there I have a very good opportunity to make a point. So there I drew on her and she decided to stick on the fence. And over the next few minutes, we kind of work on developing this drawback a little bit because she's like, whoa, what the heck? I just kind of stood my ground, and before she's used to at any point being able to walk over the top of somebody. So here I'm just trying to draw her back in. There she comes. And you notice, just guys, watch how she draws in. See how she's got a bend in her, but she's really drifting to the outside of the pin. And that was a really good change, because she started to take initial steps to come towards me, versus directly to her right is the door of that round pin. And so it was a big, even though she stopped her feet and itched and that killed the momentum, the first 2 steps before she did that were directly towards me, and that was really good, because that was an apparent decision that she made, that she was going to come with me. So as we go through there, we can keep helping her out with that and developing on that, working on that draw. So again, I'm trying to get straight. I'm trying to get right in front of her to where I could walk straight in front of her.
But there she's trying to keep me out of this right eye. So I'm just going to stay wide, because I got to get back in this eye, so I want to finish up on this right side. So she might turn back to the left there, and I just put a little pressure on that outside eye, because this is the direction we reset on. We went back to the right. She changed directions. It was a green Colt thing when I drew her towards me, because she wants to get me back in her left eye. And so now we'll go back, and now I just pretty much want her to go this way. I'm gonna just gotta draw on her on this side and finish on the right side. That's all I want to do. But I'm just evaluating. Same thing we got started. I'm evaluating. I'm not going to let her stop at the gate. I'll let her come back around. I'm going to give her the chance. I want her to go past that gate as if the gate's not even there. That was better. There. So we'll see what she does. She might, I'd like for her to stay faced up, but she's really square right now. And see, again, she goes to look away. She's checking those stirrups out, which is great. She's looking a little bit to where I'm more in her left eye. I'd love for her just to stay right there so I can rub on her. I'm gonna rub on her right side, so that, because that's the side we were working on when we started and we finished, so that she can get a little bit of a break there. Then I'll pull her here to the middle, and we'll untack her, and that'll be her first session here. So when we go to untack them, we pretty much just have to do the reverse, and you got to remember what order you do this stuff in. It sounds pretty obvious, but you'd be surprised at how many times people get used to getting into a rhythm of doing things with really broke horses. So I like to take this stirrup and put it over the saddle horn. It keeps it out of my way when I'm working on her side. And then the first thing I want to do is reach under here to where this breast collar is. I'm going to attach this breast collar to itself, the part that goes between her legs, and unhook it here on the left side. I always put mine back in a loop. Set that there. I'm gonna reach underneath her chest. I'm rubbing her the whole time so that she can feel it. You gotta be aware that sometimes that can worry them. The reason I always put it back on my stirrup back on the saddle horn, is so that if they got to moving, if it was just in the saddle, it could worry them. I place that back cinch down real lightly so it doesn't whack them in the back of the feet. Good way for you to be halfway through unsaddling and you drop a back cinch and it smacks them in the feet. So I've got a hold of this front cinch that goes around her belly, around her girth area. I'm holding on to it, and I'm just pulling my latigo back up through my saddle rigging so that I can gently put that cinch back down and tie off my latigo so it doesn't all come unraveled. And
here I'll just drop my stirrup back down and make way in front of her. And again, even with it being the first saddling, I keep short on the lead rope so that so the horse can stay straight and balanced, but then I could prevent her from turning the other way. Here she just turns around to kind of check out what I'm doing. I certainly would not discourage her from doing that, and gently pull the saddle off and untack her there. So that's just kind of how we're going to wrap up our first session with her. There she just crept into my space, so I'd bump her back. And guys, we really appreciate you guys watching. Here, I'm going to keep backing her off. There, she's just too pushy, too much in her space. It's nothing personal, but we're going to get her brushed off, and that's how we're going to wrap up the very first session. We hope you guys enjoyed this very first one, and again, appreciate you guys bearing with us on the audio for the first day of the Colt, starting with Kit, a 3-year-old Gypsy Vanner mare. And we're going to be bringing you, there's 4 more coming, so we're going to release them all in a series so you guys can see how they go. But Kit's going to go get hosed off and get put up and get some dinner. So guys, appreciate you watching. Take care.